To become a GameFace guest, you have to give $100 or more per month, so it's one of our very highest tiers. And we appreciate those people very, very much who contribute that amount. We've had a GameFace guest before. They didn't want to come on the show live. They just gave us a question to answer. But this week, we do have, live via Skype, one of our patrons who is here to talk about PSX. It's Jesper. Jesper's going to give us about 5 minutes of his take on PSX, and then Matt and I are going to pick up the conversation based upon some of the stuff that he said. So Jesper, go for it, brother.
Thank you, Shane. Thank you, Matt. Hello, Sifters. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. Sincerely, thank you for being on the show. I'm deeply honored. So I watched PSX through the archive this morning, and my thoughts comes from the perspective of a PC gamer primarily. So take that in consideration. So the first thing that struck me was that it was a really casual setting. Wasn't what I expected. Maybe I hadn't kept in the loop of what I should be expecting, but yeah. And the first thing that took my notice was the Wipeout VR segment, which I thought, well, that's a vomit comet. Would like to try it out, but don't have any PlayStation VR, unfortunately. And then Corey Balrog and God of War 4, which was a really interesting tidbit. The most surprising thing is that the game is about 25 to 30 hours long, so that looks to be a treat. Because even though I'm a PC gamer, I have played God of War 1, 2, and 3, and I really liked it for their mythological setting. So really looking forward to God of War 4 whenever it's released, if they can get it out. Then it was Detroit Become Human, and well, I do like the investigation part and picking up clues and looking for information. I didn't like the how should I put it? I didn't like the fact that they told the vital information for you. So, for instance, in the demo, there was a part where they looked at the gamepad or some kind of iPad or whatever, and they saw the price for a new Android model, and it said you were the deviant was about to be replaced. I thought it would be more interesting if you had to make that kind of puzzle yourself without them explicitly telling you what telling you how it worked out. So kind of more mysteries and make you figure things out. Then I like Dreams. It was a long time we saw that, and it looked kind of shoddy in the back. I thought it looked kind of janky, but now I'm really excited for it. It looked really, really good and really professional, and kind of the imagination you can kind of produce with it is just going to be stellar. Might actually going to pick that up just to experience all the crazy, innovative, creative ways people will express themselves. And then obviously it was Death Stranding, and the thing that I picked out of that was that when Mark Cerny said that you start to understand it after playing it for 4 to 5 hours, which to me says that the game must be quite long in development, since you can obviously play it to get some understanding of it. So maybe it's not that far off as we might expect. I always thought it would be like a 2020 game, but might be a 2019 game instead. In conclusion, I would say that, well, you can't have a Sony production without some technical difficulties. There was some kind of out of focus cameras and whatnot, and there was a lot of strange silence, and yeah. And I would finish on, and this is kind of maybe I'm making a mountain of a molehill, but the fact that they kept saying to Corey Balrog, go back and work on your game. I mean, it was on the evening, and the man has to have a life. The game, we can wait. So that's all my thoughts on PSX. Back to you, Matt and Shane. Thank you.
Wow. Thanks, Jesper. That was amazing, man. You really kind of summed up the whole thing. Matt, he was saying Death Stranding in 2019. Do you think that's possible?
No.
No.
But, you know, I've said it's like 20% complete. For Kojima, that might as well mean you're on the moon at this point. I don't know. We'll get to Death Stranding.
Yeah. We'll talk about that in a bit.
I think you have that slotted under the Game Awards section of the show.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's they made us watch that thing twice. But if you watch Game Awards and this, they ran the same trailer. It was nice to see Kojima there with everybody. But and I agree.
In his little get up, he had like the little
like,
robot, whatever that thing is.
It's like looks like a warning system for whatever those invisible things are.
Yeah.
And yeah, I agree that like them telling Corey to go back and work on the game was like felt a little weird. Like,
I mean, first let's just kind of talk about PSX baseline.
Yeah.
Did it meet your expectations? Because to me, I know Sony had kind of put out there, hey, this isn't really a press conference, blah, blah, blah. Even knowing that, it was still pretty disappointing to me. I mean, there was really...
This is exactly what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I mean, I expected
100%.
more.
I mean,
and especially once it started.
I didn't necessarily expect Greg Miller lambasting Shu on a couch, but like...
well, I stopped watching once the proper thing ended.
Okay, they did a demo of Concrete Genie and some stuff. It was pretty cool, but like... no, that's exactly what I thought it was going to be. We're going to go a little bit of Dreams footage. We're going to talk about the games that are already announced. Maybe get some day, not actual day and date, but we got like, Shu said Days Gone is 2018, which I think is the first time we've even got a year out of that thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's exactly what I thought it was going to be. Just they'd blown their wad in Paris to try to head off the Xbox One X at the pass, and so. This is, and again, like this is not really the centerpiece of the PSX. PSX is for going and being on the floor and seeing stuff.
Playing the games, really.
Playing the games, climbing the Colossus statue and stabbing it and doing all the, running around, like, the photo stuff at the God of War booth. That all looks really cool if you're there, which I am not, and I don't care to be, really. But, like, it's a fan celebration, and, like, it's not really a place to, like, it has been.
It has been. I think that's the problem. It set a precedent before.
But they told you. Klepek told us 2 months ago, basically, like everything, a lot of stuff either got moved up or was already planned to be at Paris, and this is just sort of, more information, and it wasn't exactly riveting, but it was cool. It was, it's nice to see the developers kind of out and hanging around and forming kind of this Avengers squad up on the stage, and I was happy to see Siobhan, who I know from Media Molecule. She's cool, and it's nice to see them finally getting to talk about that game. That game looks good. Well, it looks interesting. Like, I don't really know what I'm looking at most of the time with it, but like, if they're using the same level of like flexibility as the tools in Little Big Planet, then it could be a pretty interesting thing.
Let's run through a couple things here before we move on. Medieval was really the biggest announcement from the event.
Yeah.
And I say that with tongue in cheek because
I guess
Medieval is never really a big game.
No. I mean, I guess you could have been. I mean, you could have been Blasto and been less interesting, I guess. But like, I
think I would rather had Glover. Remember Glover?
Oh, I remember Glover.
3D platformer. The main character is a glove.
Magic glove.
Yeah. So they're remastering Medieval for PS4. I think that's kind of a, oh my gosh, look what Crash Bandicoot did kind of thing. Where they're like, hey, maybe these old properties, people have more nostalgia for them than we thought.
Yeah, that's not really the one I would have picked, though.
Me
I would
either.
have gone Spyro, or a lot of people wanted Crash Team Racing, which strikes me as crazy, but okay. Continuing the Crash train would not necessarily be a bad decision.
There's really not a great kart racing game on PS4, though.
No.
There's a couple decent ones, but
well, we're still waiting for Uncharted kart racing. I think.
Yeah,
it's overdue. But
I think the Medieval announcement, though, kind of speaks to something I've talked about on the show several times before, and that is that if you really kind of look at Sony's back catalog of first-party stuff from the PS1 and PS2 era, it's not amazing.
No.
Really, the PS3 era is where Sony really started to pour resources into its first-party games for exclusives.
Yeah, because before that, it was basically like a lot of the good exclusives on PlayStation 2 were because PlayStation 2 was the only game
Was
in town.
dominant, yeah. And it's third-party stuff.
Yeah, and like I would like to see, you know, HD remasters of the Maximo games.
Yeah.
But those aren't Sony produced. They're not. You know, it's a Capcom. That's up to Capcom, and you just can't tell what the hell Capcom's doing anymore. So.
And I think that's another reason why it may be difficult for us to ever see like a PS1 Mini, because ultimately most of the games for that are going to have to be licensed, because Sony just didn't have a really good first-party output back then. And so I think that might be one roadblock for kind of a PS1 Micro or whatever.
And there's a lot of, you know, a lot of the biggest PS1 games I think are not holding up so well anymore. Like I don't know if you really want to go back and see what those really look like anymore. And then
I think nostalgia clouds the memory a little bit.
And the
in a
big
lot of
stuff.
cases.
I mean, you know, I pulled all my PS1 games out of storage now for after I moved. I have room to store them, to put them on shelves, and I got a lot of them, and I'm looking at them. I'm just like, man. I'm looking at the backs of them, and I'm just like, that's a character. Okay, that's supposed to be Bruce Willis. All right, sure. You know, and like you've got stuff like, you know, like I think people would say no PS1 Mini would be complete without like Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, and Metal Gear Solid.
And Metal Gear, and it's not really, you know, who knows if you can even get Konami to call you back.
I know.
You know?
They're like, oh, you want to talk about consoles?
Yeah. So, and like, you know, Square doesn't really have a lot of incentive to re-release Final Fantasy VII again. They've already got it up
I mean, why would it let Sony do that when it can do it
They've already
itself?
got it up on PSN. They've got it up on Steam.
Right.
I think Sony's way more interested in having like the PS1 Classic section on their own systems and keeping you in that garden, you know, rather than like selling you a little mini gray box.
Yep. And so Jesper talked about Wipeout VR, called it a vomit comet, which for me, guaranteed vomit comet.
Yeah, I saw some people.
For people who can handle it, though, it may be awesome. I mean,
yeah, but I saw people angry about that.
Why?
They said that on Twitter. It's like either that they thought either they were the ones who were going to vomit and they felt he was making fun of them, or they were like, why are there VR advocates? And they're like, why would you emphasize the main problem of VR? By saying that, and I'm just like, man,
everybody knows.
Yeah, everybody knows, and man, I know people who get dizzy playing Wipeout on a normal screen.
Right? Yeah, I mean, in 2D.
He's not wrong. Like, you should be happy that they didn't decide that was a reason not to make it.
Yeah, you're right.
It's a free update too, if you already own it.
I'll never be able to play it. I'm happy for people who will be able to play it, because I think it will be absolutely incredible.
I think once again, you know, PlayStation VR really is showing that it has the most interesting library.
Oh yeah,
especially upcoming. Like they are making the best games.
Well, they sold. We found out this week it sold 2 million.
Yeah,
that's like double what I thought it had sold. So it's doing pretty well.
Much more than I expected.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, someone who does get ill from VR, the last Guardian VR experience was probably the biggest VR announcement for me at PSX, because I can't really handle movement in VR games. And you're seeing some footage here. It looks like it's pretty much one of those you just sit there and then Trico comes up and...
Yeah, I think it's like that first room, basically, a little bit. Like,
it's free. It's coming out December 12th. It's Sony's Christmas gift to
Imagine he walks around, you probably throw barrels at him. And, you know,
I mean, just to have Trico...
Solve a minor puzzle, and there you go.
Yeah. Just to have Trico that close, though, in VR, that's pretty awesome. Granted,
mildly terrifying.
Right. Granted, it's one of those things that you do once...
Yeah.
And then after that...
But that kind of gives me hope that they might do something like that to go along with the Shadow of the Colossus remake.
Yeah.
Which, that would be pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Like, also probably nausea-inducing for a lot of people. But just to be... Not as climbing the thing would probably be a little crazy.
That would be awesome, dude.
It'd be great. Like, having to...
It would be so awesome.
But, like, just standing there and seeing it.
And just looking up and being like, oh my... And getting that sense of scale that you don't get in 2D. And then, you know, first of all, I think... Jesper did a great job of summing up the whole thing. He kind of hit all the points for us. God of War, 25 to 30 hours long. That I was surprised by that, because most
I think I was expecting that to be like 10 hours.
I mean, typically God of War games are 10 to 15, and even those are long.
I mean, this is a different, obviously very different thing, but like it's more of a Tomb Raider thing. But even the first Tomb Raider was like 10, 15 maximum. Yeah. And like I guess I was kind of expecting them, because it's their first foray into this sort of format, to kind of take it easy, but they don't seem to be doing that.
Yeah, I was really surprised to hear that, and I agree with him too when he said that he was kind of put off by so many people going at Cory Barlog and saying, "Why, go back." Even if it was kind of tongue-in-cheek or whatever.
Yeah, a little bit, but it's like...
Things got a little combative on the stage.
What happened a
where
few
he started
times.
going back and forth and was like, "Oh, well, you got 7 years to make your game. I'm at like 4.5." And they're like, "Go back and finish your game, Cory." Like, I just don't feel like stuff like that needs to be displayed in front of fans.
That's like a pretty common sort of industry. If you're at a bar with these guys, the developers will make fun of each other like that. But actually, I think my favorite of all time was one of the first GDC awards I ever went to. Was one of the I think it was best game. The achievement in gameplay was presented by Seamus and I think it was Todd Howard. I might be wrong, but I think it was Todd Howard, and it's like best achievement in gameplay goes, and Todd or whoever was next to him opened the envelope, goes, "Trespasser," and Seamus Blackley just puts him in a headlock, like, because Seamus made Trespasser, that Jurassic Park game, which was famously a massive bomb and like didn't work properly, but like it's like every once in a while you'll see people just bring up, it's a little bit like that scene in Jay and Silent Bob where Matt Damon and Ben Affleck are arguing, and Matt Damon's like, "Yeah, and then sometimes you do reindeer games," and like. But like if you just sort of display that like on stage like that, it can feel a little weird. And I thought Greg Miller's thing got a little bit like that too, when he's like confronting Shu about when release dates are or when he's doing.
I didn't watch
and I'm sure that was part of the plan. It was part of the show to kind of like show that like, yeah, we're not afraid. Our head guys are not afraid to get down with it and like all that stuff. But it just sort of felt like, I don't know.
It felt a little scripted. I only watched the first part with Sean, and that felt a little scripted to me.
Yeah, I watched the whole thing. I mean, I was doing other things as well. I wasn't like just glued to the screen.
Yeah.
But like, I kept it on and just sort of had it there, and it was fine. It was like a nice little sort of chill out stream. But if you were expecting it to be E3 Part 2, yeah, this was a letdown.
Are you surprised we got no new footage or a release date for God of War?
No.
Because I really thought we'd get one of those. I mean, look, if God of War is a 25 to 30 hour game and is coming out next year, presumably in the first half of the year,
they don't have time.
They should be able to show something.
No, they shouldn't. They should be hard at work trying to finish it. They don't have time to make a little like demo.
I mean, at Paris Games Week, they literally showed 45 seconds of new footage.
Yeah, well, they got their heads down. It's crunch time.
They could have put something together pretty.
No, they couldn't. You can't spare people to like be doing some demo thing for this game everybody already knows and is anticipating and is coming out in a few months. Like they have to be working on the game. Like I understand that completely. I mean, the only thing I guess
they could have put out another 1 minute or 2 minute snippet of gameplay very easily.
That takes a lot more work than you might think.
Remember the Paris Games Week? It was just 40 seconds of the pair walking into a room, an enemy leaving the room, and then him killing 3 enemies. They very easily could have captured that and put it in the show. They didn't have to play it live. They could have just captured it and put it in the show. I was disappointed. I didn't expect a release date, but I definitely expected at least another snippet of gameplay.
I figured this was all going to be working with stuff they already had. I mean, I think they're lucky they even got Cory out there, and this probably only happened because the game's being made, 6 miles, or 30 miles north.
It's not that I'm worried about the game.
Anaheim,
the game looks freaking awesome. Yeah, it's in Anaheim. The game looks awesome. Like, I'm not worried about it. I would just selfishly would have liked to seen a little bit more of it.
I didn't expect to see anything new from anything except Dreams.
Yep.
Because we haven't seen anything from Dreams in forever.
And that segues nicely. That's what we're going to talk about next. So Dreams, we haven't seen it in
couple of years.
Well,
right?
I mean, they were doing
They've mentioned it.
Well, they were doing live streams for a while. Like, literally, like, every week.
But everybody seems to have forgotten that.
They were so granular, though. It's like, hey, here we're going to show you, we're going to spend an hour showing you how to make a hat.
Right.
Like, that was the type of stuff they were doing on their streams, so you weren't really getting, you weren't seeing the whole project. You couldn't see the forest for the trees, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, we still don't really fully have a inner working knowledge of how this functions, but we've at least seen it moving and what it is. And Siobhan talked a little bit about what the campaign is. It's like 3 different like kind of environments. There's the noir environment and the weird like terrifying bear environment, and the look, it's real trippy, and like I do like what I'm seeing in it because
she also said you could make anything in this.
Yeah, which was
awesome.
Which was true of Little Big Planet as well. People were making like side-scrolling shooters and racing games. I mean, this looks like they've, because I know I'm an army of one on this one, but I never really liked Little Big Planet's aesthetic very much.
I didn't either. You're not alone. I hated the jumping mechanics more than anything.
The jumping mechanics were infuriating. But the like kind of the openness of what the look and the tone and the type of objects you can create here in this game like are way more interesting to me. than what Little Big Planet did. And I'm just curious how they're going to make it all happen and gel together, and what could possibly be the interface for this? How complex is this going to be?
I don't know. I also felt like the interview was not handled particularly well.
No, and I thought the B-roll didn't really match up to the... Like, they weren't illustrating what they were talking about with the footage, and I wondered if that was because they only have limited footage to work with, or if it was like something was messed up. There's a lot of points in this show, especially in the early part where everybody was on the couches, where it felt like there were like some technical problems or snafu. Like, I mean, in addition to the kind of the cameras out of focus or whatever, but like it felt like there were a couple places where things sort of went off the rail a bit.
I felt like she didn't have answers for some questions, or she kind of stumbled over her answers sometimes. I think the vibe I got was that she was like, I've been working on this thing for so damn long. Like,
it's hard to know where to start.
It really was. Like, they were asking her, well, how much flexibility does it have? Can you create anything? And she kind of said, well, you could do that in Little Big Planet, so duh, why don't you think... Like, I just think maybe they're a little bit defensive at this point about the game because it has been in development for so long.
Well, also it's been like 8 to 9 months of people online saying like, oh, it's
canceled,
dead, it's canceled.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, it's never been. It's just...
Sony's very patient with its first-party games.
Yeah,
not really
not dead, only sleeping.
Yeah, I gotta hand it to Sony there. So, yeah, I guess overall, I don't know. I was pretty disappointed in PSX. I didn't expect it to be as good as the Game Awards, obviously, but I thought we'd get at least a little something. I think the one nugget that we did get was a couple of friends of ours, James Milkey and Sam Kennedy, are working on a PlayStation VR game. That was shown for the first time. It was cool to see somebody that you know from the journalism side making a game and then it being shown at a big event like that. So that was cool. But I think if I had paid to go to PSX, I'd be a little disappointed. Having Kojima on stage is huge, obviously. A lot of people never got to see him in person, so I think that probably massaged away some of the angst, but I don't know.
I wouldn't be disappointed if I paid to go PSX at all, because I get to go to PSX. Like, this wasn't PSX. This was like an opening kickoff thing, and now I get to go to the floor and play all these things and climb a Colossus and put on Kratos face paint and shit. Like, that's not what you're there for. Like, this is not like the press conference at E3 was disappointing, so there's nothing to see on the floor you care about.
I think people do go, though, because they want to be there when something big is announced, so they could say, I was there when X happened or Y happened.
Yeah, but I feel if you're doing that for PSX, like, you're missing the point.
But that's not true, because if you look at past PSXs, something has happened at every single one of those pressers where people can go back and be like, oh my gosh, I saw the first footage of Death Stranding or whatever. So
well, they did, really. I mean, unless they went to the Game Awards, which most of them probably didn't.
Yeah.
So, and maybe they didn't get to see the Death Stranding thing last night because they were, in transit to PSX. Like,
I will say this: it looks like Sony has put even more money into the fan experience on the show floor this year.
Oh yeah, definitely, it's more elaborate than anything they've done before.
Yeah.
I don't think, considering you're not just buying into a keynote, you're buying into a whole weekend experience on the floor. I feel like if I was going to that, I would be fine with it.
Yeah.
Especially because, like, even if you've already seen the Death Stranding trailer, you got to see it big, and Sony's always got crazy presentation and screens and sound.
And Kojima was there.
Kojima comes out, and it's a cool thing. It's a thing you don't get to see every day. I wouldn't be upset. I mean, watching it on a stream is just much less impactful.
For sure.
Because we're just you're hoping to see Bloodborne 2 and nothing happens.
Yeah.
But they told us it's okay. And I think they see the reaction. I'm sure next year they'll save some stuff for next year's keynote and make good on it. It'll be okay. We'll get some Shenmue HD announcement or something.
Where the hell's that game, by the way?
Probably in Norman Reedus' esophagus. I think that's where that is.
Thumbs up.
Just Rio's down there. Thumbs up.